If I don't say something, who will? That's what I kept on saying to myself. Kristen, if you don't speak out, who will?
A Valley native with a powerful and pained message. She wrote an obituary over the summer that went viral after her father died here in Phoenix from coronavirus. She even invited Governor Ducey to her father's funeral. That invitation ultimately earned her a significant one of her own to speak on night number 1 of the Democratic National Convention. Kristen Urquiza had that big audience, and this morning she is joining us to talk about how she is feeling after taking the national stage. Here's a listen from last night.
We need a leader who will step in on day one and do his job, to care. So when I cast my vote for Joe Biden, I will do it for my dad.
So her dad is who is motivating her right now. After the stay-at-home order was lifted in Arizona in May, she says her father went out to a karaoke bar, one of his favorite activities, and they believe that that's when he contracted coronavirus, and sadly he passed this summer. So this morning she is joining us to talk a little bit more about her father, Mark. So Kristen, let me say first our condolences to you and your family for the loss of your father. Looking at his picture right now, I mean, I see his picture on the Time Magazine Twitter feed right now, and he looks like a man who loved to have a good time and was full of joy, and I imagine that he's left a huge hole in your hearts.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. He's left a huge hole in the hearts of so many people. He was such a generous guy, in addition to being fun loving. He was the type of guy that you could call in the middle of August and he would drive across town to help somebody who he barely knew move a piece of furniture. So he is sorely missed by many.
Kristen, it must give you some sense of purpose to know that your father's name and story and your grief is being shared all over the country. I mean, your name is everywhere this morning after your powerful speech at the DNC. Many people taking away that you were the most impactful speaker, even of the evening, and given the company, that is saying quite something. But you've been thrust into this amidst your own grief. Do you have any trepidation or nervousness about sharing your father's story and your own in a political landscape that is often brutally vicious?
Absolutely. I'm terrified. I've seen the viciousness that comes to people who speak out. And as a queer woman of color, I am, not immune to knowing that people can be really nasty and terrible to one another. But what drives me not only is my own father's story, but knowing that I represent literally tens of thousands of people just like me who are suffering this unimaginable loss and living this nightmare. I do this because I believe it's my patriotic duty to do that.
We know that more than 170,000 Americans, nearly 171,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. So, think about your grief compounded by all of these families and friends who are moving on without somebody important in their lives. You talked last night about your father being supportive of the president and supportive of the political agenda and trusting the word of his government leaders, both on the state and federal level, that it was safe to resume life. So how do you think he would feel about the message that you're sharing? And what do you hope that some will hear from you who still insist that this pandemic is not a threat?
My dad and I didn't see eye to eye on most political issues. But one of the things that I know with absolute certainty is that my dad would be incredibly proud that I was speaking up, fighting for him and fighting for others who need help and support. That sort of generosity is a value that I bring forward from, being his daughter. For people who may still be, on the fence about the coronavirus, I feel for you. I am terrified that this may land in their doorstep, and I wouldn't wish what happened to my father and the experience that I've been through on my worst enemy. we have a common enemy right now in the United States. It's the coronavirus, and we need our leaders, whether it's at the state level, like Governor Ducey, or at the federal level, like Donald Trump, to take this virus seriously. And we haven't seen that to date.
Kristen, I know from reading your story that Joe Biden reached out to you and you felt it was a very heartfelt message, and that was another component of why you wanted to be part of this messaging and convention this political season. Did you or have you heard from Governor Ducey? I know that you had reached out to him, and surely your message has been all over the state.
Yeah, I have not heard directly from the Ducey administration or the governor or the president themselves. When I launched Marked by COVID, which is the organization that I'm now volunteering to bring people's stories to the forefront and hold politicians accountable, I was contacted almost immediately by the Biden campaign with their condolences and their well wishes for me. It was a heartfelt message and something that I have not seen from the other side of the aisle.
Kristen Urquiza, we want to thank you so much for sharing your father's story and your own mission today. And I know I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you and other families like you, and I hope that they can find some sense of comfort to connect. Thank you.